and this one is all about creating continuity in flow. And so, if flow is your words and your rhythms, musical rhythms together, and the structure that arises from the interaction between them, then you have to know how to continue your flow and to keep it going. So, what I'm going to do is I have the handout that you can find right below. And I'm going to go through each piece on it part by part, and I'll introduce the concept that you should use to keep your flow moving along smoothly, like flow should, and then I'll do a good example of using that principle, and then a bad example of using that principle. So the first way to keep your flow going is to always be, and this is a simple one, is just to always be talking about the same thing. And as simple as it is, a lot of rappers do not always follow it, as we'll see from the examples. So the first good example that we're going to talk about is Jean Grey's Style Wars.
Man, I pray y'all still catching the heat still, mashing the grillin', potato smashing the caps, fill it like a teen under bleachers. Valley girls, pep rally cheerleaders, sluts named Sally. Either your brain dead or your veins pump nothing. If you ain't saying jeans, bumpin', name ain't pumping, suckers brain ducking. You'll be running your frame tucked in to the pain like I'm Wesley and the King. Say something, knuckle.
Gina's always talking about the same thing. It's a very general concept of how dope she is, how sick she is, and how effed in the head she is. And now there's the Busta Rhymes Get You Some example.
Get you some. Don't stop, nigga, we ain't done. Gonna do your fucking roadblock.
A lot of niggas shit sound dated. I'm like Shaq, franchise player just got traded to the #1 team in the league. See, I ain't on J Records, I'm on Dre Records. Aftermath, bitch. You need to learn, cause you ain't know when to have, bitch. And while I go, I'm putting dough in the stash, bitch.
And from that, you can tell he starts off talking about other rappers, how they're not as good, but then he immediately jumps to what he really wants to talk about, which is how he left one record label for another for Dr. Dre's Aftermath label. And it goes together musically, but not textually. And so if you're following along, you can really be like, well, there's a break in the flow there, which is what we should try to avoid. So that's it for strictly textual ways to continue your flow, because the rest of them have to do with music and text working together. So the first thing is to always create your sentences, what I call phrases there, is always to have them go across the bar line. And if you don't know how to count bars, we should start there, so you should listen to my Music Theory for Rappers video. Because you don't want to line up your phrases with the bar line, because the bar line is already a natural resting place for music. It's already where music stops. It's where the song will stop. It's what everything repeats at least once a bar. You don't ever repeat something that is, like 3 beats long, which would be 3/4 of a bar. So you don't want to line up a natural resting point with another resting point. So someone who's really good at this is Rakim, and we can now listen to his I Ain't No Joke, where his sentences mostly don't line up with the bar line.
I ain't no joke. I used to let the mic smoke. Now I slam it when I'm done and make sure it's broke. When I'm gone, no one gets on, cause I won't let nobody press up and mess up the scene I set. I like to stand in the crowd and watch the people wonder, damn. But think about it, then you understand. I'm just an addict, addicted to music. Maybe it's a habit, I gotta use it.
And a less than stellar example comes from Rick Ross. A lot of Ross fans are huge on this verse, but I am not big on this verse because his phrases mostly line up with the bar line, and that's always where they stop. And when you combine the fact that they are also stops in his flow with other principles we'll talk about, such as where you start rhyming on new syllable patterns, to me, the flow is a little dead.
Looking at my I bet she give your the bone. Looking at my wrist, it'll turn your to stone. Stretch limousine, sipping rosé all alone. Double-headed monster with a mind of his own. Cherry red chariot, excess is just my character. All black tux, shoes lavender. I never needed acceptance from all you outsiders. Had ciphers with Yeezy before his mouth wired.
Another way to create continuity in your flow is you have to avoid pauses of greater than a quarter note, greater than a beat. And this is another one that you think a lot of rappers could follow, but unfortunately that is not always true. Now, you can use pauses greater than a quarter note, but they should be for poetic effect. So someone who's really good at that is Pharoah Monch on the song Simon Says. He pauses when he says, "This rhyme will remain," and so let's listen for that.
This rhyme will remain in the minds of my foes forever in infamy. The epitome of lyrical epiphany, skillfully placed poems and carefully planned symphonies.
There is Big Sean's unfortunate pause, and actually we will be talking about this verse a lot as an example of what not to do, but I don't think it's completely Big Sean's fault because it is a tough beat to rap over. It's really an electro beat that was made for Justin Bieber to sing over and not really to rap over, but you can hear in this example that's coming up how he says, "I don't know if this makes sense," and it doesn't, "but you're my hallelujah," and then there's a long pause that's about three quarters notes long, and then he picks up, "I'll beat you there, I'll take you to it," or whatever, and that is simply too long of a pause, especially once your verse has already started.
I don't know if this makes sense, but you're my hallelujah. Give me a time and place, I'll rendezvous.
Another good way to create continuity is to repeat similar rhythmic figures. Now, these rhythms can be big, as the example we'll see, or they can be small. But the good example that we'll listen to is Eminem's Business, and you can hear that his rhythm is carried from one bar to the next, and it's always the same rhythm.
Just to get to see an MC who breathes so freely, ease over these beats and be so breezy. Jesus, how can shit be so easy? How can one Chandra be so leavy? Turn on these beats, MCs don't see me. Believe me, BET and MTV are gonna grieve when we leave dog for Sheezy. Can't leave rap alone, the game needs me.
And then again in Big Sean's As Long As You Love Me, he moves to these quick triplets. These, you can just tell that the rhythms are quicker, without really any transition at the end of them, where he starts rhyming. The one that I argue with, da 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 da. There's no real transition, and he doesn't keep the idea going afterwards, so it's just a little awkward part in the flow.
Man, we stepping out like whoa. Oh God. Cameras point and shoot. Ask me what's my best side. I stand back and point at you. The one that I argue with, feel like I need a new girl to be bothered with, but the grass ain't always greener on the other side.